I'd like everyone to think back to your junior and senior years of high school, when you couldn't pass by anyone without being asked, "So, what college are you going to?" Chances are you finally arrived at this decision based on a list of personal preferences: location, size, available majors, social life. You weighed your options and you chose the school that best fit most of your desires. Unfortunately, not every student is able to consider all of these factors. Sometimes the only factor for them is cost. The trend of rising college costs is affecting access to college, and the government's response to this issue is still up for debate. So I know that you all know that the costs of college are clearly rising, but I created this graph using College Board and census data to show you how the changes in cost compare to the changes in federal aid. The tall blue bars show the changes in average cost at four-year public universities. This is total cost. And the smaller blue bars show the change in average federal student financial aid award. So, as you can see, the government has increased federal aid each year, but the percentage is only about half as much as the increases in total cost. So clearly there's a disconnect here that the government has the opportunity to address. And they can address this when they reauthorize the Higher Education Act, which is the major government document outlining federal government's role in higher education and higher education financing. So you now know that college costs are clearly rising, and that the government aid is not rising at the same pace. But you may be wondering, why is this a problem? Why should the government respond? And how will this affect us? Well, the truth is, access to higher education really is in jeopardy. A 2003 government hearing entitled Affordability in Higher Education reported that 22% of low-income, college-qualified high school graduates didn't attend college because of cost factors. And they're not alone. 16% of moderate-income students are in the same position. So this disturbing trend translates into a need to strengthen our investment in human capital, which is really the most important kind of capital that we have. No student should have to go to their second or third choice school because of cost factors. And more importantly, we should want to promote access to higher education because it helps continue the competitive and productive qualities that make our nation great. So now that I've explained the problem and the need to correct it, let me tell you how I propose the government solve the problem. Congress should reauthorize the Higher Education Act with additional grant funding and no price controls. House Representative Howard McKeon proposed an affordability system that would essentially set prices on tuition. This would be done by withholding direct student aid from certain students, the students who chose to go to schools with excessive amounts of tuition. This plan should be avoided for several reasons. First of all, Skidmore economics professor Sandy Baum argues that even if the government froze tuition prices forever, low-income students would still not be able to attend college without considerable grant aid. And secondly, the government actually has little ability to control prices. This is in due large part to its historical role in this system. The federal government's primary function should be to guarantee access through higher education through funding, whereas it should be the state's function to try to keep tuition reasonable. And finally, this plan should be avoided because it would actually shrink resources and access for the most disadvantaged. So clearly, the government needs to find an effective alternative to this problem, to dealing with college costs. The option that I propose is to bolster the Higher Education Act's fundamental approach of sending millions of students through college through aid. According to the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, the primary function of doing so should be to expand the Pell Grant Aid Program, which is a major source of need-based aid for low-income students. Specifically, Congress should increase the maximum award to more than $4,050. Now, the opposition may argue that increasing aid actually contributes to the rising cost of college, but a 2001 Department of Education study found that tuition rose significantly despite the government's meager increase in Pell Grants and no increase in loans. The second method of sending millions of students to college should be to foster participation through increased aids of all kinds. Clearly, we can't foster participation by withdrawing aid. And finally, the government should maintain its traditional role as distributor of aid and of information. This would allow states the flexibility for innovation and local tailoring of their own cost reduction plans and aid programs. So to review, the government should omit price controls from the Higher Education Act because they will be ineffective and potentially damaging. Instead, it should increase access through Pell Grant expansion and state and institutional planning. Now let me tell you what life would be like first without this plan and then with it. Price controls and decreased funding would only intensify the current problem. In fact, excessive government regulation could stifle the market-based dynamism of the system itself. Furthermore, if Congress authorized price controls, the neediest students would be hurt. The more than one-half of you who receive federal aid might actually be penalized. And on another personal note, the University of Richmond would be forced to keep its tuition down. This would endanger its great policy of meeting 100% of need-based aid. Conversely, the results of my proposal would benefit society. With increased federal funding, the government would avoid the mistake of trying to control a diverse market. Under this plan, our own University of Richmond would be able to maintain its self-formulated financial aid program, which currently gives about 65% of students some form of aid. Now, opponents argue that this method may create a disparity among the quality of cost reduction plans and aid programs among the states, but I say that this is a good thing. A clear difference in the success rates among the states highlights the programs that work best, allowing states to adapt their own programs and learn from what works. Most importantly, under this plan, the federal government would increase access through college. This would promote the all-important investment in human capital. I truly feel that this approach would help alleviate the problem of college costs, and there are some things that both you and I can do to support the plan that I've just outlined. I'd like you to learn more about aid programs and then write letters to your congressional representatives asking them to support certain provisions in the Higher Education Act. You can go to the address you see here and look at the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. You can look at their publications, see what they endorse and who endorses them. And then you can go to their Action Center, type in your zip code, and pictures of your representatives will pop up. You can just click on them and send them a message right there. I encourage you to take advantage of this easy method of contact and specifically ask for increased grant funding and no price setting. So please allow me to summarize again why those actions are necessary. The trend of rising costs jeopardizes access to higher education, and the government clearly needs to respond to this problem. The students of our country do not need direct aid taken away from them. They need increased grant funding. The institutions of our states do not need more bureaucratic regulation. They need the continued freedom to create their own effective cost reduction plans and aid programs. And finally, the federal government does not need to change its fundamental role in the higher education system. It needs to continue expanding access to college through aid. In closing, no student should have to choose a college based solely on cost factors. By expanding access to higher education, we can foster positive participation in college, and this will create active and informed citizens.